Hey everybody, I'm Creed, and today it's a little different. I'm going to make a video about how I ink instead of what I ink. So stay tuned. Alright, so this guy is Monstar from Silverhawks, and I'm going to do a regular video that's all about him while I ink. This is just what I'm going to use for example. Now, I start all my art just with pencil on copy paper, and I think this one came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. And usually by the time I know a piece is going to work, that's when I darken in the pencils. A lot of people don't really darken in pencils. I need to be able to see what the inks are going to look like before I ink. So there's very little improv in my inks. There's a little bit because the process is different from penciling. And the tools will affect how the art comes out. I find the tools really give it the look that it has at the end. So all I do from here, if I want a really good set of inks, what I should mention first is scan your art at the biggest size that your computer can run Photoshop or whatever program you're using. Max out your computer to get the biggest size for your art, because then you can go back to that file. If somebody says, oh, I need a poster of that'd be great. You have the file that can make a poster. So that's one thing. I work at a really big size. So my standard scan of my art, it's become a standard size because I always use the same size paper and I use the same scanner. And I found this is the max that my computer is really going to handle and still work good while I'm doing. I scan at 600 DPI resolution, which is unnecessarily big, but it just gives you the leeway if you need it. So I could double the dimensions and get 300 resolution, and that's still print quality. And then the pixel dimensions, I go 5,100 width, 7,014 height. And like I said, that depends on your computer, so that's just the size that my computer works good at. That's the biggest I can do and still have everything run smooth for me. But you always want the option with your art. You want the original file to be the biggest and the best it can be, because you can make tiny little buttons out of it, no problem. But you can make posters out of it too. You want to make your art infinitely useful, and this is the way to do it. Have the biggest file you can have. And we're living in the future of like terabyte hard drives, so don't worry about file size of your original file. All my original files are pretty huge, but I don't worry about it. So all I do is I open up my file in Photoshop and I make a new layer. And you want to fill that new layer with black, because that's going to be your inks. And then you make it transparent, but I like to go on the darker side. I go about a 75. Because if it's darker, it helps you see the selection tool better. And that's what we're using. I don't use brushes. I don't use all the stuff everybody else uses to ink. I use layers and the selection tool. That is how I do my inks. It's super weird and I do not recommend it. But it's the way I get the art to look the way I need it to look. And when I first started to do digital inks, I didn't look up how to do digital inks. I just thought in my head, okay, how would I do this in Photoshop? And I was like, okay, make a new layer and cut it. And this style will only go well with no cross hatching and stuff like that. And I'm going to do a video about how to find your style, and I found my style, and it's definitely as seamless as I can make it is my style. So like I couldn't ink something by Jim Lee with this process. because it would take 10 years to ink every little tiny little line he makes. I don't have any tiny lines. I like my art to look like it was sort of drawn with a big Sharpie. There's actually a minimum line size. You won't see a couple of tiny little lines somewhere. That just makes the art weird. So all I do is I cut out around the perimeter. My art is all about the coastline between the black and the white. And I'm just cutting this out with the polygonal lasso tool, because if you use the normal lasso tool, good luck staying on a line. But with this, I just click along the line. I can keep clicking along the line, and look, there, I cut it out. Now that's a black layer on its own, because all I did was go around the outside and then delete the part that's not the art. And now what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm deleting all the white pieces that are in the art. So I'm not actually drawing the black, I'm cutting away everything that's not black. If I think about it, it's a strange process that I don't think anybody else does. So this isn't the way to ink. This is my unique way to ink, which probably will not work for most people. And it's probably way slower than any other way you could learn. And that's another thing. This is still sped up, but I'm gonna have to really edit the middle part of this where I refine the line, because the entire piece from scanned pencils to finished colors was 6 hours and 15 minutes. And I know that because that's the length of the 3 video clips I recorded. I like to record in sections. So I do rough inks. This is what this is. This is me doing rough inks. And I'll show you how rough they are when we get there. So I do rough inks, then I do the refining part, which I actually never record because that's the long part. That was the like 5 hours. Middle part is making these lines how I want them. But right here I'm just putting the lines in place. This isn't about line quality. The whole middle part of my art, the main part of what I do, is about line quality. I want super smooth, sleek line. It's almost the reason why I do my art, is just to get smooth lines on stuff. And I guess that's a bit OCD, but it gives my art a wow factor that other people's art mostly doesn't have, to me. There are a few really good artists that do really super sleek, and I really enjoy those guys. But smooth and sleek is the goal of every piece I do, and that's where most of my time goes into. So it's weird, my style is melded right in with my technique. So this probably won't work for most styles. And like I said, this is probably a slower process, even if you could use this on your art. So this is how to ink like me, but why not to? Don't do it. And some people would say, well, there's faster ways, and they'll name off something. Whatever you're gonna name off, except for other programs. I'm not using anything but Photoshop. No thanks. And they'll say, but this is better. Yeah, nothing's better than Photoshop. I can use Photoshop in my sleep. I've been using it before there were layers in the program. So I won't be switching from Photoshop anytime soon, that's for sure. But basically any faster technique you can name, I have tried and was not happy with what the result was. It's a weird thing. I can make the art, I can put it out. Nobody would notice the things that are driving me nuts. So my whole art process is to go through and make sure it's as perfect as I can do it and still produce some art. Like if I put 12 hours in, would it be better? Yes, it would. It would be immaculate. But I've learned, no, do a really good job. Early on when I was still learning how to do this, I was using a lot of shapes and like built-in mechanical parts to Photoshop to ink, and it came out really mechanical. Like it looked like a machine made the art, and I thought that was what I was aiming for, but it's not. What I want is the most mechanical I can do by hand. So I want it organically mechanical. So what I learned is some of the flaws that I see, some of the lines that aren't the right curve that I wanted, or they're a little bit off, stuff like that, that actually gives the art character it needs it. It's just like what I found out about doing YouTube videos. If you cut out every stumble and and ah and everything you think that's a mistake, then it sounds like you're just a robot reading the phone book. So when I started, I used to cut out everything, and it really hurt the videos. So you get lots of ums and ahs and blabber blabber and whatever. Like, I just like to talk how I talk, and I find it gives life to the video. So it's the same way with my art. A little bit of, like, if a machine plotted this out, I know how it would look, and that's sort of the goal I have. But the failure in my human ability is what gives it character. Like, it's close but not perfectly mechanical is what I aim for. The best mechanical inks a person can do is kind of what I aim for. So like I said, sometimes what I see as flaws are what's actually giving the art its character. If that makes any sense at all, I don't know. The inking job doesn't go by the size of the piece. It's more work if there's more coastline. So the more white pieces that I have to cut out, and then that coastline has to be smooth, then that's more work. So a piece could actually be smaller, but if there's more white space and more little pieces to cut out, then that's way more work. So I'm just roughly cutting everything out. And it doesn't look rough here because this is still zoomed out. And it doesn't look too rough here because we still have the pencil layer showing. But I'll show you when it's done. It comes out really blocky and max headroomy at 100%. And what I learned is, you don't want to try to do a smooth first pass like this, where I'm just cutting the stuff. If I try to do all this smooth, it makes it harder to find the flaws and fix them. But if I just do it rough, then I'm smoothing every part, and it comes out better. It's weird. You want the first pass to be rough so you can do the second pass smooth. It helps. The other weird thing about this is the rough inks are good enough. If you just need it for a small size, you can shrink it down and all the flaws disappear because of the, you can't zoom in on the line. So these rough inks are actually useful. If you're in a crunch and you need a small size, then look, that looks great. You look at that. But if you zoom in, so there we have rough inks on their own, and that black is its own layer. See, there goes the background. It's just this. That's what my inks are. And then what I like to do is I'll put a white layer behind. But look, there, you can see, look at these lines. Look at that. And then all I do to make a white layer behind it is make a new layer below, use the selection tool outside the art, and it'll select, as long as there's no inside parts I have to select, but you'll just get the outside shape. And then I like to go and change the selection and just shrink it a little bit, and then I'll put in a layer of white. Now that's his direct background. That's not the background for the picture. So that makes him a figure on his own. I have this thing where I like to draw out pretty much everything separately in a picture if I can, and then just put them in where I want them. And see, that white's just its own layer too. And there's the inks on their own layer. And that's how I like to do it. There we go. And we give them a background, and then I'll copy the background layer and add a stroke to the outside. And that way, even the stroke around the character, I can change anytime. I like to make everything completely adjustable in my art. Alright, so that came out pretty good. That's not bad for rough inks. A lot of the work for the rough inks is done in pencils, like I said, because my pencils are pretty much exactly what I want the inks to be. It's sort of why I don't count my pencils as like, oh, this is the art. No, it's just a blueprint for where I want my inks. It's just Les Nessman's tape, that's not the walls. And then, okay, here's the really crazy part. Then I do about 5 hours of zooming in like this, and then finding every little bump and inconsistency and deleting it on the outside of the line or filling it on the inside of the line. And I just go along meticulously, just find every little insignificant bump, because it all adds up. And what I found is you want your selection tool to be feathered by 1, because if you don't feather it, you get a weird, it's weird when it's just jagged like that. You just want to feather a 1 to get a nice sharp line. It has to be a little touch blurry to be sharper, which is super weird. But yeah, and I use the selection tool for this. I just do a little like shapes. I cut a shape so that one side of the shape will erase some bump, and then I just hit delete. Or like I said, if it's on the inside, I hit fill. I feel almost like those guys that use that planer on the side of a door. If the door is catching, then you get this thing and it shaves the chips off. That's kind of what I'm doing here. It's more like woodworking than inking in a weird way. And you can see this takes a while because you have to set a level of quality. And I want my eye to look and go, okay, that line is just a continuous shape and it's nice and smooth. Then I move on to the next line. And that's why my inking takes so long, is because to get something I'm super happy with, it's going to take me, 5 hours of doing this. So I'm just going to jump ahead, because let's not fill 5 hours of chit chat here and try to watch me ink something completely. So this was not sped up, but I'm just going to crop that. It's super weird. I'm editing this as I'm recording the audio, because there's so much footage and I'm not sure how to actually do this. So I'm just figuring it out as I go. Okay, so we're going to make a jump. For all my Slime Rancher viewers, we're going to make a quantum jump. And I'll just skip to another spot. But yeah, that's all I do, is I just go along every line in detail work and super smooth it out. Now, somebody's going to say, well, how come you don't use Illustrator? Because I hate Illustrator. I hate it. I can use it. I know how to use it. I don't want to use it. If at all possible, I would like to stay away from Illustrator. It's just not my vibe at all. Photoshop is. And you could say, okay, yeah, but you can scale an Illustrator file. Well, I have a giant Photoshop file, so I can scale this down as far as I want. See, when you don't have to worry about file size, like I said, we're living in the future. Multi-terabyte drives. What are you worried if your file could be 2 gigs if you want it to be? What's the difference? It's not like the old days. I don't have to WinZip this onto 10 separate floppy disks. I can just drop it on a drive. Like, there's no worries about what size it is. It doesn't matter. So that argument kind of disappears. I'd rather just have a giant Photoshop file. Photoshop. So if you look closely, that's all I'm doing, is just drawing little shapes and deleting the bumps off all these lines. It takes a long time, but that's why my art is not just like, oh, so look, somebody drew it. It has some kind of wow factor, and even if you're not sure what it is, that's what it is line quality. That's sort of what my art is all about, is line quality. So I've basically invented the slowest possible way to do what I'm trying to do. But it's the only way I can be happy with. It just is. Trust me, I've tried faster ways. I've tried just select that and set it on smooth selection and just drop it all in. Yeah, it's all, no. I can't make a piece of art and put it out there if it's going to constantly bug me about that it's not done the way I need it to be done. I'm super specific about my art, and I think that's how it's come out so good. You have to have a vision and a plan for your art, and I definitely do. That's the other reason I'm a little different from most artists, and most artists are like, wow, I need to learn more and improve my art. I was like that I'm an old man. I was like that for a long time, always trying to get better and better and better. Then I got to the point where I wasn't actually working on how to draw something better. I was working on getting a piece to work, and that's sort of a different thing. Sometimes you just do a piece and it just doesn't work. Once I could draw how I wanted, then I just need to work on getting more pieces to work, and I have. I rarely have any failures compared to 3 years ago, when it was half my art would just be like, nope, that's no good, and I throw it away. So you can see this is just riveting. Like, I should do this in a stadium and sell tickets. People would love to watch this. No, this is the grueling. This is where the work goes into art. This is why I do a piece a day at the fastest. Because after like 5 hours of doing this, you could fit in another piece. But your brain's just going, no, we're not today. No. But all I want to do is get a really, really good line. Super focus on line quality. So this takes me a super long time. And sometimes when I start a piece of art, and I get the pencils done, and then it gets to the inking part, I feel almost like a guy standing at the bottom of a mountain, looking at like as far up as he can see, and there's clouds, and he knows there's more mountain after that. Because this can be grueling. Like, it takes a lot of patience. This is the most patience that I have left. Like, when I was a kid, I won like reading contests at the library from reading novels and stacks of novels. I don't have A, the attention span, or B, the time for that anymore, because that time has to go into art or I won't get art made. So I don't have the patience to sit and read a novel anymore, but all my patience has to be saved up in a jar and used on my art, because it can be daunting. If somebody goes, oh, I have to sit for like 6 hours moving tiny bits of pixels around, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. I know I make a super good quality piece exactly how I want it, and that's the important thing to me. My style is as important as my subject. And Monstar is cool, and Silverhawks is a great cartoon. Stay tuned for the video where I'm doing basically the same thing but faster and talking about him instead of this. So that's my style, is everything carved out of black and then just the white highlights cut out. That's why my stuff has so much solidity and darkness to it. It makes it a lot more solid. But see, the downside of my style, and there are downsides, it'd be weird for me if let's say he had some kind of virus on his arm and he needed super detailed lines because it was like a veiny kind of virus. I would probably do that in the coloring, just because that doesn't match my style. To add tiny lines into what I do, it would look like you did use two different pens, and it would stand out. Like, I don't know, it would be jarring. I've done it a few times, and I've added more detail in a spot, and I'm like, no, that just doesn't fit what I do. You can't swim against your own style. So there's limitations. Plus, it makes my art look more solid, but it also makes it look way more static. Like, some people like vibrant and jumping and life in their art, and I sort of am not looking for that at all. It's probably obvious. Everybody stands and they are solid. Like, there's no motion in my art in most cases, but I'm not trying to put any in there, so I'm okay with that. Okay, and then 5 hours later, the inks are done. And there's such a good feeling when you have something done and you put all that hard work into it and you know that it's quality, and that you don't have to go back later and say, well, I kind of half-assed it and now I need it for an important thing, and the high resolution image shows off all the half-assed parts, so I need to fix it. No, it's done. And then this guy, for coloring, every color goes on a new layer, because then it's completely adjustable too. And he's mostly just a couple of colors of red and some skin color. But yeah, that's the big secret to my art, is the main two things I use is layers and the selection tool. And that's how I make my art. If you have a project or some small part of your art probably that you want to get a smooth look like this on, like I said, you're probably going to find a faster, easier way somehow that doesn't bug you at all. But this might be useful to somebody somehow. I don't know. I don't think anybody should probably ink like me, but this is the only way I can do it. And people say get like a Cintiq and draw on the screen. That has no use to me. That's because that's not my style. I'd have to change everything I do. I don't want to do that. I use a mouse and Photoshop. Oh yeah, I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but yeah, this is just all done with a mouse and selection tool and layers. That's how I make my art. I don't think one of those screen tablets or Cintiq or whatever would be any use to me whatsoever. I don't think you can use a mouse on a Cintiq, can you? I don't know. But it'd just be another screen to me. Like, I wouldn't, any of the features you're paying for, I probably wouldn't use. So just like a lot of other things I do, it's sort of like using a rock to open a can. Hey, I got it open, didn't I? So that's what my inks are, is I'm using a rock to open a can, but I'm very good at opening that can with a rock. I'll tell you by now. This is my first shot at anything resembling a tutorial that I can think of, and I recommend against doing it this way to anybody. But if you need it for a certain style or project, hey, use my ideas, go for it. You want to use the Creed Stonegate digital inking process? Go ahead. But I don't recommend it. Just enjoy my art and feel relieved that you didn't have to sit through the 5 or 6 hours of detailing that I have to do on everything. So I think that'll do it. Like I said, I'm also working on a video idea for how to find your style, because I have. Look at mine. That's my style. And this video is actually longer than I expected it to be, so there you go. It is however long I could jibber jabber for is how long this video is. So there we go. So I'll have more art videos and more Slime Rancher coming up soon. Until then, take her easy.